Hey guys, welcome to my YouTube channel, Salesforce Gurus. This is me, Ram, and I'm the 39X Salesforce Certified Senior Developer and also Salesforce Architect and also Consultant. I'm working in this industry since 70 plus years, and today in this episode, I'm going to talk about the Salesforce Apex Trigger, why Apex Trigger is being used, and actually what is it. And there are a couple of the scenarios that we're going to discuss about the Salesforce Apex Trigger. So without delaying, let's jump into the scenarios and the Apex Triggers definitions. So there will be two different scenarios that I'm gonna talk about while going through the videos and while going through the other episodes too. In this episode, we're gonna talk about one scenario with the Salesforce Apex Trigger, and there are a couple of the best practices that we follow in the Salesforce Apex Trigger, and also why we use the Apex Trigger in Salesforce. Actually, the Apex Trigger is a piece of code that is executed in response to certain events in Salesforce, such as the creation or update of a record that you can see in the screen, that the couple of the lines of definitions we can see. So actually, Apex Trigger is one of the automation tool, as Salesforce is having different automation tools like workflow rules, process builders, Salesforce flows, and many more they are coming up. But Apex Trigger is one of the Salesforce automation tool that is programmatic development tool that one should write a code, one should know how to write the code in Apex, then only he or she can execute the Apex triggers. This is a really powerful tool. People use Apex Trigger to execute the complex validation rules and also perform certain actions that cannot be performed by using the other administrative tools. There are other options to what the Apex triggers can do and what other tools can also do, but the way Apex trigger works is really different. And the way Apex trigger handle the tasks and it handles the use validation is really complex. There are two types of Apex triggers. The first one is before Apex triggers, and these sort of Apex triggers are used to update or validate the value in the record before you save to the Salesforce database. So if you have if you have the situation, if you have the scenario that you need to validate the records before you are inserting that into your database, before you are inserting that into your objects, then you need to apply that before Apex triggers. There are before insert, before update, and before delete. Three types of before Apex triggers. Similarly, we have Apex after Apex triggers that performs the action right after having your Apex trigger triggered. These Apex triggers are a little bit different than what you call the before Apex triggers. There are three types of the Apex triggers which performs right after the action. First one is after insert. The second one performs after update, after delete, and after undelete are a couple of the Apex after triggers examples. So while talking about the Salesforce Apex trigger, we should not forget that there are some best practices. Salesforce always talks about the Salesforce best practices in everything, every tools they have introduced or every product they have in the Salesforce ecosystem. This is because Salesforce is itself a multi-tenant architecture. So uh, because there are a lot of people who are using the Salesforce at the same time, and the same resources might be used by or monopolized by the couple of the people, or a couple of vendors. So that's the reason Salesforce introduced the governed limits, and there are best practices that needs to be followed to execute your Salesforce Apex code properly and perfectly with the quality with the efficient operation. So for the first best practice, avoid using triggers to perform the complex business logics. So do not write the business logic into the Apex trigger. For the example, we might be writing the Apex business logic in the Apex trigger, but if it is possible, if you are at the real-time work scenarios, then write the Apex trigger handler classes that might help you to handle the Apex triggers. So there is another best practice that is use triggers thoroughly. It's important to test your triggers thoroughly to ensure that they are working as expected and not causing any unintended side effects. That means your Apex triggers should be tested. And here there are a couple of guidelines in the how to write the Apex triggers. Test classes, you have to use the at the rate is test annotations to specify that it is a simple, the Apex class, but it is a powerful automation tool if you see it. So you have to be really careful on why you are using the Apex trigger and when you are using the Apex trigger, since Salesforce has introduced the governor limits there. So you have to follow the guidelines also. Should not hit the governor limits to run your code efficiently. So we're going to talk about a couple of the different scenarios where we're going to use the Apex trigger. Before that, let me take you through the steps, how we're going to create the Apex trigger in the Salesforce ecosystem. Most of you who are joining this the video or who are watching this video, you are, I hope you are aware of the Salesforce developer org. That's the one org which we normally use to practice all sort of codes and all sort of practice things. So the first step, what I'm going to do is I'm going to open my developer org. Here's my developer org. So there in the documents you saw that there are steps written. So for the first step, what I'm going to do is I'm already logged into my developer org, developer edition org. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on the gear icon, which is setting gear here. Let me click on that gear icon. There we see the developer console. So the second step, what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on the developer console. After hitting the developer console, it opens up this screen, this window, where I can see file, edit, debug, test, workspace, and help tabs. So I'm going to pick the first file option, and I'm going to hit the drop down of the file. Then I'm going to click the new option. So with new, you can create Apex class, Apex trigger, Visual Force Space, Visual Force Component, and many more things out of here. So our concern is creating the Apex trigger. So I'm going to click on the Apex trigger. So this is how it looks like when you hit the Apex, creating Apex trigger. For example, let me write test trigger. This is just an example. I'm going to pick the object because Apex trigger should be provided with any object where it should fire. I mean, what is the base that Apex trigger should be triggered? So let me say this is the account. So this Apex trigger is test trigger, which runs on the account object. And if I hit submit button, it's going to create the Apex trigger. So this is our Apex trigger, the first Apex trigger, how it looks like. Trigger, it writes the syntax automatically comes up. This is the name, and this is the object name where the trigger is written. And these are the trigger context variables. I mean, in what context you are introducing the trigger. So, for example, let's go back to the scenarios and try to solve a couple of problems there that will make the concept more easier. Okay, so these are the steps I already talked about. The steps 2, you to select the developer console option, from where you're going to go to the file option and open the pop-up window. There you can pick the Apex trigger creation option. So let me jump to the scenarios. Okay. So I have a couple of scenarios, and I'm going to start with the first scenario, that is prevent a user from insert, update, delete operation in account object. So let's go to the developer console, developer org. And before going to the developer org, there are a few things we need to keep in mind. The first thing is, it is asking us to prevent a user from inserting, updating, or deleting operation in account object. I mean, it has not specified the user. For now, we are assuming that anyone. It should uh, stop any user to perform this operation for a moment. This is just an example, and the trigger should be written in account object. So it is preventing to insert, update, and delete. That means prevention happens before doing any actions, right? So it should be the nature of the trigger should be what? Before trigger. So these are the things we should keep in mind. I mean, what sort of trigger we are writing, and where we are writing, and what are the operations that we have to perform by using this trigger. So we are preventing a user from inserting or updating or deleting, from performing these 3 activities in an account object. So for that, let's go to the trigger. Let's go to the developer console. Here we have, let me create the different trigger. Go to file, drop down, Apex trigger, and give any trigger name, but give the meaningful trigger name. For now, let me give scenario 1. This is the trigger, and we are performing an action on the account object. That means we need to pick the account object that was already selected. So I'm not going to do anything on it. So simply, I'm going to hit the submit button. So my scenario 1 trigger is there. So I'm going to write this trigger. Let me just make it capitalize it. So before insert. But our trigger says that our requirement is what? Before, not just before insert. Should be what? Before update and also before the delete operation. So these three are the operations that it should prevent from performing an account object. So the next thing what I'm going to do is I'm going to specify the trigger context. It should fire when if the trigger is insert or trigger is update or trigger is delete. These three are the trigger context. Now I'm going to specify when they should fire. The trigger should fire before performing these three activities. So what it is saying is the trigger should fire before the insert operation, before the update operation, and before the delete operation. So that's what it specifies. So now we need to write the code. Now good with we are specified what sort of triggers we are writing. Now we're going to write the code. We're going to write the context there. So first, what I'm going to do is I'm going to collect the user information in the user object because we are preventing the user from deleting or performing any operation on that. So that's the reason why we need to collect the user information. User record equals to, let me select ID, name from user object, where the username is equals to, I need to specify the user now. I mean, it might prevent any user or any people who are jumping into that Salesforce org. So we need to specify the particular user who should be unable to delete or should be unable to perform these activities. For that, let me go and check what is the username and user information for this org. Source box, quick find box, hit user, go to users. Now, it's still opening. Okay, so this is the username because there's only one admin and this org was recently created. So I'm going to pick this username. This is the username that we're going to prevent. Let me open the username so that I can copy the username properly. It's opening. Okay, so here's the username. This username is the admin user, and I'm preventing even admin from making any changes, performing any sort of operation, insert, update, or delete operation in the account object. Let me write that. Okay, so we have copied and pasted the username there. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to test the username. If user record dot id equals to user info dot get, I'm going to use the get function user id. I'm going to use this function. That way I can pick the user id. Now, again, if trigger is delete operation, if that is a delete operation, I'm just going to see which operation they are trying to perform. So for the delete operation, I'm going to run the for loop for account ACC, anything you can give the name, trigger.word. Why I'm picking the word means we are collecting the old list of account records. Now, because if you're deleting means that should be already existing there. So what I'm gonna do here in the loop is For the delete operation, if the trigger is delete, if somebody is hitting the delete button, then it will go into this, it will enter this trigger that is delete. It will check this condition, and that will, for that reason, I'm gonna run all the list of accounts that is already accessing there. So it will pick all the account records which are already existing there in the account object. And here, if that is there already, then what I'm going to do is acc dot add error. I'm going to give a message, pop-up message to the user, cannot delete record. So we're done with the delete operation. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to check if user is trying to perform the update operation. If the trigger is sorry, the update operation, yeah, update operation. If somebody is trying to update the record, then what it should do is, again, it should pull all the account records. SCC, let me give the different username, sorry, the variable name, and trigger.new. Why this is new? Because per update, you're providing new records. So it will pull all the list of new records that is in the account object. So again, if somebody is trying to update the record, it should throw the error. So I'm going to add error here. An error should pop up that cannot update the record. So that user also know that what I'm doing and what is prohibited here. So user is being stopped from making any update in the account record. So for the insert, let's say there are three contexts. First one is insert, second is update and delete. So we already checked the delete. If somebody hits the delete, what should happen? If somebody hits the update, what should happen? Now we are in the insert operation. So if somebody is trying to perform the insert operation, what it should do. Now, I'm again going to pull all the account record. Trigger.new. Now, again, I need to throw, if somebody is trying to perform the insert operation, I'm going to throw the error message. Error message should say that you cannot insert the record, so that the user can know what has been prohibited there. So what actions, what operation they are trying to perform, and it should stop. Now, okay, something is wrong there. It's giving the error message update. Okay. Okay, spelling mistake. So now I'm gonna shape the trigger. Our trigger has been successfully saved. Let me check if my trigger is active or not. The trigger name is scenario 1. So for that, I'm gonna go to the quick find box and write Apex Trigger. Yes, this is my Apex Trigger. If I click here in that name of the Apex Trigger, it will open up this screen. And if you hit edit option, it will give the option, it will show the tick marks. If you click on that, if you uncheck this box, then the trigger will be deactivated and it doesn't work. So let's just save it. We didn't make any changes. What I'm going to do is I'm going to try to insert, update, or delete, perform those operations in my account object. Let me open the accounts object. For that, I need to open any application here. Still buffering. All right, guys. Finally, we've opened up the sales application. Now, let me go to all accounts. These are a couple of examples already given there. Let me try to open, right? Let me try to delete that. It's the delete button. Okay, here's the delete button. Let me try to delete that. See, you cannot delete the record. Let me try to insert. It's too long time. I'm trying to create a new record. For that, we need to perform the insertion operation. Let me just give the required field name and hit save. We cannot save because this error message cannot insert the record. That's because of the trigger. Again, let me try to update this record. The details option. Now, let me just write down any parent account ABC. Okay, this field is not existing. No parent account is existing there. Let me try to update any other things. Let's put it hard. See, we cannot update the record. All right, so this is how the trigger works. And this was the first example, first scenario of the trigger use cases. There are a couple of other examples that I'll be posting in the upcoming videos. For today, thank you guys. Thanks for watching the video, and thank you for your time.